Hello, I am Ezgi. Today I want to tell you about an investigation of using different types of feedback strategies in interactive video lectures. First, I want to mention the topic of this study and some concepts used for this study. As we know, the number of educational research on video-based learning has increased day by day. But in video-based learning, students can be passive learners. To deal with the negative effects of passive learning, an interactive video concept that supports interaction with some clickable areas such as quizzes is commonly used. These in-video quizzes are defined as questions shown to users in certain points in a video lecture. With these interactive videos, students can test themselves on the topic or material and receive feedback. Feedback can be defined as any response information about students' state of performance or learning. In the literature, researchers have identified several feedback types used in computer-based learning environments. Among these, widely used feedback types are knowledge of response, knowledge of performance, knowledge of correct response, answer until correct, multiple try feedback, and elaborated feedback. Giving feedback is an important strategy to support learning because related studies show that when students receive feedback that gives the correct answer and additional information, more effective learning can occur. It is known that with given feedback by using the right learning technologies, better engagement can be achieved. Engagement is so important in education because student learning is related to engagement, and it is known that engaged students are more successful than unengaged students. Learner engagement is associated with participation in learning and understanding. It is defined as the student's cognitive, behavioral, and emotional effort to achieve a learning outcome. Student engagement has three dimensions: behavioral engagement, emotional engagement, and cognitive engagement. User engagement we focused on is the emotional, cognitive, and behavioral connection that exists at any point in time and possibly over time between a user and a resource. One of the other important factors in education is metacognitive awareness, because it's known that it positively affects students' performance. Metacognitive awareness is defined as the ability of the regulation of individuals' own cognition or thinking processes. It is positively correlated with good course outcomes, and metacognitively aware students perform better than unaware students. Researchers also suggest providing immediate feedback in the learning process to support students' metacognitive awareness and to achieve the larger goal of self-regulation. Self-regulation can be defined as self-generated thoughts, feelings, and actions that are planned and cyclically adapted to the attainment of personal goals. According to researchers, most effective students are self-regulating. But in computer-based distance education environments, achieving self-regulation can be a challenge for students. Thus, they cannot regulate their own learning always. Therefore, interactive videos with questions and feedback added can be used for developing students' self-regulation. According to the researchers, good feedback should provide opportunities to develop students' self-regulation. But commonly used feedback types in distance education, except elaborated feedback, cannot have opportunities to develop their self-regulation because in these feedback types there is no other information except the response. Elaborated feedback can support student self-regulation by providing information about essential cues and conditions. But in many feedback studies, different elaborated feedback components are combined, such as knowledge of the correct result, knowledge of the result, and explanations of errors. Also, when learners participate in self-regulation activities, their metacognitive skills such as planning, monitoring, or evaluating are developed. So, because self-regulated learning focuses on metacognitive strategies, metacognitive feedback strategies can also support self-regulation. Thus, we can conclude that elaborated and metacognitive feedback are the two specific types of feedback that could support student self-regulation. Since we know that good feedback practices should include opportunities to develop student self-regulation, we choose these feedback types for using in interactive video lectures. We eliminated other simple short answers, simple outcome feedback types. So, the purpose of this study is to compare the use of elaborated and metacognitive feedback strategies in interactive video lectures in terms of undergraduate students' engagement and metacognitive awareness levels. This study also aims to investigate undergraduate students' evaluations of elaborated and metacognitive feedback in interactive video lectures based on qualitative data. There are 3 research questions in this study. These are about students' engagement levels, metacognitive awareness levels, and evaluations of these feedback types. These are the null and non-directional hypotheses of the first 2 research questions of this study. For this study, we used the basic randomized post-test only experimental design comparing the 2 treatments supported with qualitative data. Participants were randomly assigned to the comparison groups, which are the elaborated feedback group and metacognitive feedback group. The independent variable of the study is feedback types embedded into interactive videos. Dependent variables of the study are students' engagement and metacognitive awareness levels. The participants were 52 undergraduate students who registered for the 4 different sections of the Instructional Technologies and Materials Design course in a public research university in spring 2021. There were 45 female students and 7 male students, and 3 one-on-one interviews were conducted with 3 volunteer students who participated in the study. For this research, the short form of the user engagement scale and planning, comprehension monitoring, and evaluation subcomponent items of the metacognitive awareness inventory were used as the quantitative data collection scales. To collect qualitative data, an interview protocol prepared by the researcher was used. This study was conducted in the 4 lab sections of the Instructional Technologies and Materials Design online course offered during the COVID-19 pandemic period. This course is about an introduction to the design of learning environments integrating technology. It has both lecture and lab sections. The lecture sections cover the theoretical background, the lab sections cover developing learning materials with articulate storyline. Both lab and lecture parts were carried through Moodle and Panopto. So in the lab sections, there were 6 tutorial videos teaching how to use Articulate Storyline. These videos are screencasted tutorials prepared and recorded by the course lab assistant. These videos aim to teach how to use some features of Articulate. So students saw how different interactive learning media designs can be prepared with Articulate Storyline about these topics in these videos. These videos were made interactive by adding quiz, questions, and feedback. Totally, there were 22 multiple choice questions in these videos. All questions were prepared with 2 types of feedback, changing according to the groups. While the quiz questions and timing were the same, participants received different feedback types based on the group they are randomly assigned to. In the metacognitive feedback group, first the students saw the multiple choice questions. After they answered the quiz questions and clicked the complete button, they saw the metacognitive feedback. This feedback includes the correct answer and the questions that aim to provide self-regulation. In this figure, you can see an example metacognitive feedback screen. While preparing these self-questions, a regulatory checklist and tenor self-question table were utilized and inspired. In the table, there are some examples of metacognitive feedback used in this study, its strategies and original self-questions utilized for them. In the elaborated feedback group, samely, students saw the multiple choice questions first. After they answered the quiz questions and clicked the complete button, they saw the elaborated feedback. According to the researchers, to promote student self-regulation, elaborated feedback should include detailed information and essential hints. Therefore, in the elaborated feedback group, when the students answered the multiple choice question, they learned the correct answer and got detailed information about the answer as feedback. In this figure, we can see an example of elaborated feedback screenshot. And this table shows us the strategies of preparing elaborated feedback. For the interviews, differently in other two measurements, the researcher and the participants watched one of the videos together on a Zoom meeting. The selected video was shown to participants by screen sharing, and when the quiz questions appeared on the screen, the participants were asked to provide an answer. After the participants answered the questions, they had the opportunity to examine both types of feedback side by side. Thus, both types of feedback could be analyzed and compared by the participants. Participants were asked to examine both types of feedback, and then they asked the interview questions. For data analysis of the first research question, descriptive statistics were calculated, the parametric test assumptions were checked, the normal distribution of the test scores was analyzed. It was decided that non-parametric tests can be used for the user engagement scale scores, since the scores were not normally distributed, and the Mann-Whitney test was conducted to examine if the difference between the scores of both groups was significant. For the second research question, the same operations were made and decided to using same test. For the last research question, the interviews were transcribed and descriptive explanations of the transcriptions were made. Then examining these descriptions, some inferences were made. For our first research question, parametric test assumptions were made. According to the results, the non-parametric Mann-Whitney test was applied. The Mann-Whitney test results showed that there was no statistically significant difference between students' engagement scores who watched interactive videos with elaborated feedback and who watched interactive videos with metacognitive feedback. For our second research question, we applied the same operations, and again the Mann-Whitney test results showed that there was no statistically significant difference between students' metacognitive awareness scores who watched interactive videos with elaborated feedback and who watched the interactive videos with metacognitive feedback. For our last research question, we looked at these students' preferences. While all students preferred elaborated feedback for the first quiz question. For the second and third quiz question, only 2 students preferred the elaborated feedback type. Other preferences were for metacognitive feedback. In general, all students gave closer answers to each other as the selection reasons. As the selection reasons of the elaborated feedback type, they stated generally that it was explanatory, summative, and descriptive. Especially when students answered the quiz question incorrectly, they tended to prefer the elaborated feedback type, which helped them to understand the subject. On the other hand, the students who preferred the metacognitive feedback type said that it helped them to reflect and think deeper. They further suggested to combine both types of feedback to take advantage of them both as they were serving different purposes. These suggestions were made for both different quiz and interview questions. All the students made these suggestions over and over during the interview, so this can be an important implication for future research. Based on the qualitative findings, it can be stated that the 2 types of feedback do not provide a consistent superiority over each other. This is also consistent with the quantitative findings of the study. Now let's look at the recommendations and implications for future research. First, according to the students' expressions, prior knowledge was an important prerequisite to take advantage of the metacognitive feedback. If they grasped the subject well and answered the quiz question correctly, they tended to receive metacognitive feedback. On the other hand, if they had less idea about the subject, they want to choose the elaborated feedback in order to increase their level of knowledge. Therefore, in-video feedback can be provided according to students' answers. If their answer is correct, metacognitive feedback can be provided. If their answer is incorrect, elaborated feedback can be given. Also, all 3 students offer suggestions for combining and giving the 2 types of feedback together. They generally say that feedback would include a short explanation and then followed by a reflection style question together. Therefore, elaborated and metacognitive feedback can be combined and provided together. As a final, you can see some limitations of the study on the screen. To generalize the research findings to a larger population, further research can be repeated by considering these limitations. Thank you for listening and time. If you have any questions, you can write in the comments. I will be happy to answer.